So, what can we make so far of the people that Trump has been appointing to his cabinet? We have Marco Rubio, right-wing, reactionary, staunch Zionist, staunch interventionist as the nominee for Secretary of State. He is also a huge when it comes to wanting to ramp up the new Cold War against China. As I alluded to, he is in full support of Israel and their genocidal campaign against the Palestinians. He is also a huge supporter of the U.S. blockade against Cuba. And I would say generally, regime change efforts in Latin America. He's not as big of a supporter, it seems like, of the U.S. proxy war against Russia vis-a-vis Ukraine. And Trump has been making similar statements. So it seems like. And then let's say we also have Mike Waltz, right? I believe he is being tapped as the new head of the NSA. He is a right-wing, reactionary Republican congressperson from Florida, I believe. Another huge China hawk. And so it seems like the cabinet picks that Trump has made, those are just two examples, a pivot towards China and ramping up the new Cold War in China. And Trump has mentioned wanting to level tariffs against Chinese imports, which honestly probably wouldn't really impact China a whole lot. I believe it's like 3.7% of their exports. I forget if this was quantity or quantitative they send to the U.S. And other people have also made the point, well, if the U.S. is putting these tariffs on Chinese goods, China could do the same to any U.S. goods that they import. So there definitely would be repercussions for pursuing such a policy under the Trump administration. And so like I said, it seems to be a pivoting away from, let's say, the proxy war against Russia in Ukraine and pivoting towards China, potentially pivoting towards Iran. Trump keeps talking about how bad a deal the Iran nuclear deal was, etc. And then a continuation of Zionist policies and support. We have Rubio, staunch Zionist, who has blamed, Hamas for Israel having to kill so many men, women, and children, right? Not a whole lot of humanity there in Trump's cabinet nominations. And then you also have Elise Stefanik as the UN representative from the United States, another huge Zionist, another supporter of the settler colonial genocidal project that is Israel. You have, I believe, Mike Huckabee will be a nomination. I forget what title or position he's going to have, another huge Christian Zionist. And then Tulsi Gabbard. This is kind of a interesting one to be head of the DNI. She will be the Director of National Intelligence, and her record is mixed, right? She was against the Syrian dirty war, which the U.S. was, through the CIA, they were literally funding Al-Qaeda in an effort to institute regime change against Assad. And then we had, the Russians supporting the Syrian government and fighting against the, Al Qaeda forces and the so-called moderate rebels. Gabbard, to her credit, was against that, and she took a lot of heat. As a result, she is, from what I've seen, her comments have been pretty good when it comes to opposing the proxy war against Russia vis-a-vis arming and supporting Ukraine. So those are 2 times she's been anti-war. But I think she's also, it's a very mixed bag because she supports Israel and the genocide of the Palestinians and has been very supportive of that. So it seems to be a very, RFK, Health and Human Services, he's also a Zionist. So that seems to be a very much a connecting factor of all these appointments. You have to be a supporter of Zionism and the settler colonial genocidal project that calls itself Israel to get a seat at the table in the Trump administration. And then you have Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General. Not super familiar with his stances on foreign policy, but I'm assuming also probably supports Zionism, which as Attorney General, doesn't really necessarily concerned with foreign policy per se. But so it seems to be a pivot towards China. Again, Trump has ratcheted up the anti-China rhetoric with the talk of tariffs. And then we have Rubio, staunch anti-China hawk. We have Mike Waltz, nominee to be the head of the NSA, huge anti-China hawk as well. So it seems to be a pivot towards China, and then a doubling down of the U.S. government support of the genocidal project, that the settler colonial state that calls itself Israel. So that seems to be the direction, at least as far as I could make out from these appointments by Trump. Let me know what you think down below.